Welcome to the Intercut Podcast channel, the weekly place to hear the latest on movies, TV, and entertainment that people just can't cut away from. I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me to talk about one of the best filmmakers right now, it's Zachary Shevich.
Hey, what's going on? We're taking a trip to Garland Land. It's
Garland.
Pretty harrowing. There's a lot of like dystopia action and weird creatures and all sorts of nefarious sci-fi creations, but it's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
I'm really stimulated being here.
It's like there's a reason why he's one of the best out there. I'm excited to do this one. So we had to bring on an aficionado, someone to make sure that the war stays civil. We got you in all the way from overseas. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. There's no Judy in this Garland over here, so I'm ready. I'm ready to get this thing started and talk
You're
about
prepped.
some great picks.
You just did an Alex Garland bracket, so you're
I did.
like
It's not out yet.
versed.
Yes,
You said
yeah.
you
He's
pretty
put
much
in
did
the
everything
reps.
but the
He's
games,
been at
right?
the gym.
I seen what? Sorry.
You did everything but the games.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We did a pretty extensive watch for that. Yeah.
Did you have anything on your Quiet on Set podcast that ended up becoming like the biggest match? Was there anything that you feel that you could fix and redeem here? Maybe a pick that didn't make it all the way?
I mean, we had Devs and Man in the first round, and that was an interesting matchup. But the way that it played out for us, it was basically up until the semifinals. It was a writing and a directing pick, So that made it quite interesting. But I'm not gonna say more. I guess you have to check it out yourself. But
Yeah, well, that's one of the interesting things about Garland, and one of the things we'll get into as we get further into this episode is that he is a guy who was a novel writer first and foremost, and many of his books were eventually adapted into movies. He eventually found his way into screenwriting and wrote many iconic movies, and he has found himself in the director's chair as well. So we are seeing not just the growth of the man, but the growth of the creative man.
Yeah.
Through Garland.
I think that's one of the most fascinating things, especially with the Civil War press tour, was that idea of him like retiring or him quitting. And in reality, he just said that he was going to take a step back. I went back to 28 Days Later, Ex Machina, Annihilation. In all those interviews, this man really has been about that. Recently, it was on, I want to say IndieWire, where he kind of corrected things and he said, what I'm going to be doing is screenwriting, and screenwriting is filmmaking. That's why we got the whole bracket here with those movies. You can't erase screenwriters or DOPs or editors or actors from the process of screenwriting. Filmmaking is not the preserve solely of directors. You would think that he's doing that recently to sound cool. He has been about that since day one. When he finally became a director for Ex Machina, he just kept telling everybody, like, it's not important. Ask me about anybody else. Like, me making this movie is just me shifting another role. I am not more important than all the other pieces. And I've always found that fascinating with him. As Zach had mentioned, he's done a couple of novels and stories that we're not going to have in the bracket, but I don't think we saw The Beach yet, but Zach did. Any thoughts on that one, since this is going to be some of the outlier ones?
Yeah, I mean, well, The Beach, I just knew by reputation as one of the films that Leonardo DiCaprio took on post massive Titanic fame when he was, America's dream boy or whatever it is. And it's this pretty harrowing vision of a kind of like a Lord of the Flies for the modern teenager, directed by Danny Boyle. So the first of what would become several collaborations between Garland and Boyle. And it's really interesting to see Leonardo DiCaprio in this mode, much younger, but still kind of got this wiliness to his performance. The film itself is really interesting in the ways that it has these sort of wish fulfillment fantasy elements about traveling to this secret island and starting a new society full of teenagers and stuff like that. But it takes such a turn into the what we expect from Lord of the Flies and the infighting and ultimate collapse of this society that they've built. It doesn't have as many of the hallmarks of an Alex Garland movie that I think we'd come to expect, but I do think it has some of the same sort of paranoia and fear of of the world we're creating.
Society,
And, yeah. And I think I had a more fun with it than I expected to, given I think the film has kind of like a mixed reputation. I don't know if anybody's the biggest fan of it, but I thought it was pretty fun.
You'd recommend it?
You know, I'd definitely recommend it to you. I know the kinds of movies that you like. Like, if you are down for like kind of a gonzo thriller, I think you'll find some things to enjoy about it. If you like Leonardo DiCaprio or Danny Boyle, I think there's some things to enjoy about it. But yeah, it's a mild recommendation. Not an amazing movie by any means, and you know, it's not going to make my Alex Garland top 5 or anything like that,
or the Leo top 5 either.
No.
One of the other ones he did a couple years after. I know this one wasn't Danny Boyle, but the Tesseract. I did not catch it. I don't think Zach caught it. Ewan, did you ever even hear of the Tesseract?
I didn't know. I mean, for the research for our own bracket, I saw it and was like, what's this? Novel? No, not interested. Moving on.
Yeah, I caught like a tiny bit of it. And, you know, you get Jonathan Rhys Meyers waking up in this sleazy Bangkok motel and like having these kind of gung fu looking visions of stuff. And it seemed very out there. It seemed very trippy, but it also seemed like a little cheap and very dated. That's what it is. That kind of early 2000s way. And I don't know. It's the rare film that I looked up on Letterboxd and had absolutely no friends who saw it, and I took that as a sign to not go further.
Yeah, that should be another one. I think that was probably his lesson in like, okay, I'm not just gonna be writing for hire or allowing my things to be adapted and flipped like that. I look at that poster; it looks like a worse version of The Island. And I don't even like The Island like that.
Right.
But several years later, after doing a lot more collaborations that aren't going to make the list, there is one that I was able to catch for the first time. It's called Never Let Me Go, that came out in 2010. And this is one where what we have is really set. But this one surprised me. I don't know if you guys got it for the first time or maybe on a rewatch, but I found this one to be fascinating because he had mentioned that it almost takes inklings of what Ex Machina then talked about, like leftover ideas from this and themes, and you follow what would be this like school or an academy, a building of people, kids who are kind of created to just go through surgeries to help like mankind survive with whatever they need. A sister's keeper type of storyline with all of them. I really liked it. And the more that I think about it, Zach likes to talk about movies where like you sit with, but then you talk about it way more than you expect to. This one's easily that. And I see the chat from our membership patrons, Devesh, talking about you have a kid, Ella Purnell, in here. You have a young actress playing Amy Adams, or not Amy Adams, Mulligan. Looks just like her. The casting in this is spot on. The adult characters and the way that they play with the timelines is really good. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts about it. If you would actually bump one of the movies we have in the bracket for this one.
You would?
I'd bump one of them.
Which one?
But Dredd. I'm not a fan of Dredd, but I feel like I'm mellow out on a lot of Garland stuff on like this. Well, I like the premise a lot. I don't know if I like the whole execution of it all, but I definitely agree on. I can see the ideas that later are more explored, more in depth in Ex Machina here about like valuing and social standings and using that in a slightly fictionalized world.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting movie. This one is directed by Mark Romanek, who is a filmmaker who's done some stuff I've liked. Like I liked 1 Hour Photo. He's done a lot of stuff in like the music video realm.
Okay.
But maybe not the level of filmmaker of like a Danny Boyle or even like what Alex Garland would ultimately become. It's interesting because it's got a lot of those elements that you're talking about that are similar to what's going on in Ex Machina, revolving around technology and cloning and stuff. And it has those hallmarks of Alex Garland, But in terms of the movies that he actually had a hand in, like the writing or directing of, I feel like this is definitely the outlier. And like there's a good case to be made why this one should be the one we leave off the 8-movie bracket, because like it's got this more melodramatic, contemplative tone. And even though there is that like dread and creep of technology, it's not nearly as like paranoid or electric, I think, as a lot of the later movies would ultimately be. But yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, and it helps to have, you know, young Carey Mulligan, young Andrew Garfield,
Donald Gleason, who would come back.
Donald Gleason, yeah. So a lot of actors that I like seeing for sure with Never Let Me Go. Can I tell you Caitlin's problem with Never Let Me Go?
Okay.
She's like, if we can clone the people, why can't we just clone the organs? Just clone the organs. Where would you keep them?
They're the refrigerator, you know?
Right.
They keep them pumping. Grow.
I guess. Maybe there was an movie explanation for it and we talked over it, but
that's the theme. It's questioning the creator. Hey, yo, what's up? Why'd you create us like this?
I'm questioning the creator. Why'd you do that? That seems kind of cool to have these meat puppets walking around.
Never Let Me Go didn't make the list. Neither did Sunrise, the Batman Black and White mini episode that came out in 2009 that he wrote. I know this is the comic series, and this is kind of what it gets translated to. You can watch this on HBO Max if you wanted to. Interesting that he dabbled in Batman. Like, that's the most intriguing thing for me, but it's not even something we can credit him for. He's got the credit for it, but it's so tiny.
It's a 4-minute black and white web short, which feels like, even in the way that it's executed, almost like it's like a student film. And I'm not trying to like discount it. It's slight. It's like meant to be like a little moving comic taste of Batman. But like, you know, it's fine. It doesn't, nothing really about it screams Alex Garland to me.
So don't switch it with Devs last minute, or?
I mean, I'll hear you out, but I wouldn't.
We also had the games. I don't know how much involved he is with the games, but I have people who love Devil May Cry, and I believe it's the remake that came out in 2013. I never heard of Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, but it's just fascinating to me that it's like, all right, books, scripts, like, what do you not do, dude? Like, he's got everything firing on all cylinders. But that's
do you know how involved he was with the games? Like, is he like writing the stories?
I think it's a story thing because he's even credited for the special editions. And like the re-releases, remasters and stuff. So I've heard him talk about it a little bit, but not too much in depth, just in passing when being interviewed for the stuff that we're going to talk about now. But we have split it between, let's see, 8 total movies with 2 different blocks. His movie bracket at the bottom, but at the beginning, his writer TV bracket. What's interesting is that a lot of these movies, years later, we found out he may have not directed them fully, but he kind of did have some moments, scenes where he almost might have deserved that co-credit. So we begin with what I consider already a difficult match from the start. You ready, boys?
Yeah.
We begin with 28 Days Later from 2002, directed by Danny Boyle. And Sunshine, 2007, also directed by Danny Boyle. You are a special guest. I'm going to have you take the lead. What do you got?
That's a tough matchup. I agree. Look, I think 28 Days Later offers a lot of credit to the style and especially for the zombie genre, for everything that comes after. I think it's truly something that you can see the repercussions of to this day. On its own, though, as I consumed it for the first time in 2024, I felt like I wasn't missing out on something that everyone else was kind of collectively saying this is a cultural thing that is so iconic. I didn't really see the connections. With Sunshine, I was so surprised by the cast that was assembled for this. Right. And everyone here has had like a huge thing. Like even Hiroyuki Sanada with Shogun
right now.
Right?
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh, Chris Evans.
Michelle Yeoh is in this.
It's ridiculous.
So I feel like for the cast alone, it's great. I don't know if he utilizes the cast in the best way. I feel like Sunshine throws you for a couple of loops, and I appreciate being thrown around a bit more than being chased by zombies. So I got a slight preference for Sunshine.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
They're both really good movies. Sunshine. Oh, I always confuse Sunshine with The Core. Those are two movies that one was going out into space, one was going into the Earth, and I might edge one out a little bit, but I'm curious to know what Zach has. Is it the zombie movie, or is it the Sun zombie movie?
I think that I might agree with you in that while there are lots of things that I like and appreciate and enjoy about 28 Days Later, that there is like a pretty singular quality to the kind of space horror that Danny Boyle is putting together in Sunshine that
Okay.
really sticks with me and really kind of think gets under your skin. I don't know. I rewatched it in order to talk about it on this bracket. It gives me the feeling of like Alien, but without the alien. You know, there's just this
Yeah, I feel that.
overwhelming nature to the visuals and even the audio, and it's really epic. And while like I do think there's a lot to really appreciate about 28 Days Later, obviously it kind of was this sort of crux point at the recent rebirth of zombie fiction. So much of what we have now in stuff like The Walking Dead and The Last of Us can trace back to 28 Days Later, reinvigorating the genre. I don't know. I feel like it's a really entertaining ride, but it sticks with me less than Sunshine does. Sunshine burrows a bit deeper into my skin. It infects me more than the zombie juices.
Do you feel that it's a matter of like it pioneered it, almost like going back and seeing The Wizard of Oz in color? It's like, oh, it's cool for them, but we've seen it in World War Z. We've seen it in all that. There's nothing in 28 Days Later that you think maybe has aged because of the
totally.
times that we're in.
Right, like it's the idea of like you see a bunch of coming of age stories and then you go back and watch Breakfast Club or Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and those movies don't feel as fresh as they did when they first came out. And I'm sure there's an element of that, of just the novelty of having running zombies in movies, which was such a fresh idea in 2007, is now just like any other zombie movie
Everywhere. Yeah.
Where it really shines, I think, is still in that opening sequence, that whole bit with Cillian Murphy wandering the streets of London, where they shot those moments like really early in the morning, where they could actually close down some of the streets. Yeah, I mean that it's so effective, and I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that quite gets you that level of like apocalyptic feeling in
right
our real world setting. But I think there's just something more stylistically to Sunshine that ultimately I dig.
It also beat The Walking Dead for that type of opening scene. Like he beat Rick Grimes to the waking up in the middle of the zombie infested hospitals. Look, I am agreeing with you guys as well, Sunshine, because 28 Days Later filmed on a DV camera and it looks like garbage all these years later.
Yeah, that was another hard thing about the rewatch.
Yeah.
That's cool. Hey, I love risks. They risked it for sure, because there's a scene at the end that is actually, they switched it to 35 millimeter because I think test audiences didn't like something about it, so they reshot something, and it is night and day going from DV to this.
Yeah. Like the whole movie is also shot like this, like this. It's so much stuff. It's just in close-ups as well.
I agree with you. So yeah, Sunshine, the winner.
I think
this one.
That alternate ending with Cillian Murphy's character.
There's like 3 alternates.
Yeah. But yeah, it tested poorly with audiences. They wanted something a little bit more optimistic.
Next up, we have 2 big ones. Dredd versus Devs. It might be easier since I see that there's one D title that some of us prefer over the other. I'll begin. It's Devs. I think Devs might be one of his best. I know it's a mini series, so we're kind of playing with like a bigger format here, but Devs, I think, covers a lot of the things that he has been going at in a lot of his series, and it cultivates into him going at not just the pattern society does, but those that are above that abuse it. That it's not just politicians who are in charge of people, it's these tech overlords who aren't even being watched over. I think this is where he incepts a lot of ideas that we see in other movies, and I also like the actors that he picked up from here because Kaylee Spaney, I think this was the first time they worked together. Who else did he have in there? Who ends up being the president in Civil War?
Nick Offerman.
Thank you. He played, I guess, the evil president in here, but as a tech
Yeah. Oh,
person.
Carl Glussman and Jin Ha play the snipers in Civil War, and they were in Devs.
Henderson?
Yeah, Stephen McKinley Henderson also
Thank you.
in Devs and one of the best parts of Civil War.
Killer cast. I'm going Devs all the way. Zach, explain to him maybe why Dredd should be appreciated a little more.
Well, I mean, Dredd at least serves a really interesting point in the trajectory of Alex Garland's career, right? Because up until that point, he is just a screenwriter. But Dredd has some issues during production, and they bring him in to do the reshoots and in a lot of ways kind of take control of the movie. If you read some of the reports from back in that time, he apparently was the guy in the edit bay kind of directing the ultimate cut of the film. So the film really does have his kind of stamp on it, even if technically Pete Travis is the one who's credited for it. I mean, you look at the movies that Pete Travis has directed and you look at the movies that Alex Garland has directed, and I think you can see that there's like a lot you can attribute to what Garland did. One thing I was surprised by is that I think it was actually Garland who was behind a lot of the ultra slow motion that they used in the movie. I figured because he wasn't a filmmaker before that would be somebody else's, and it's also not a big part of what he does now. I figured it would be somebody else's creation, but yeah, he that like ultra bullet time stuff that I thought was actually done mostly compellingly. Like, you know, we're coming off of some overlong Rebel Moon movies from the god of action slow-mos, Zack Snyder, and I found Dredd to be much more compelling in how it does that stuff. It's interesting to see the parallels between Dredd and other stuff that would come later in his career, right? Because there is sort of the oppressive nature of the technocratic governments and the threat looming because of the way that technology gets incorporated into different aspects of routine life. It's also funny seeing how much this film feels responsible for the aesthetic of Cyberpunk 2077. I don't know if either of you spent any time with that video game, but there's like a direct line there. All that being said, as much as like there's a lot of really fun stylistic bluster and some interesting like story elements to Dredd, I find Devs to be so much deeper and so much more rewarding.
Lena Headey's good in it.
Yeah.
I call her Mama.
Anything
you like the raid though, no? You like the raid, right?
I love the raid. Yeah, great
then that's
film.
fair. You get as long as you like that one, you get this Dredd.
He's not prejudiced against building set action movies.
There's 3Ds in Dredd and only one in Devs. So on the if this is where a tier list that we're making, it would be lower.
It's a better student.
No, I really appreciate that in Devs someone like Sonoya Mizuno, who's been like in a lot of has been a collaborator in pretty much all of his directorial stuff, gets like more of a leading role here. Someone who I had to double check, like, oh yeah, she's been in all of his other films. So it feels nice to basically have like a great actor, director, writer kind of work relationship there. Something that I feel like makes for the strongest films in the long run. I mean, just look at Scorsese and DiCaprio, De Niro and stuff like that. Pays off in the long run. With Dredd, I love Karl Urban. I love how brutal this movie gets. It sometimes had me like just gasp. Just gasping. It was like that was actually really brutal and
sick.
Yeah, sick. It's actually like sick in a good way, and then that's sick.
Yeah.
I just can't get over that this movie is not really tonally landing in the way that it's really over the top, but it also is kind of serious in parts. And I was like, never sure what it was going for. And it ultimately, like not knowing anything about like where this Judge Dredd character comes from, or if it's, I don't even know if it's original. I don't even know. I'm too ignorant to find out as well.
It is a comic adaptation.
Yeah, which is
That's what
interesting because
it feels like.
he's like, there was in the contract, because it's a comic, can't take off the helmet. And he was like, I don't think I like this world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to the 4-minute Batman.
That's
shorts.
the thing, right? Like there's some interesting stuff here, but you have to imagine that like had it not gone through another director's hands, had he had the freedom to kind of play with the material how he wanted to, the way that he would ultimately get the chance to kind of do what he wanted to with Annihilation, maybe Dredd would have been a bit more iconic and remembered more fondly by Ewan, but yeah, it's not as good as Devs for sure.
What, going from Batman to this, do you think at some point we do get like some kind of darker superhero adaptation from Garland? Will he be like roped into that world?
Joker 3?
Folie à trois? Mélange à trois?
You know, I thought I wouldn't see him go towards that direction, but Civil War has these like big action set piece elements that are kind of new for him in a way that made me think like actually he might be able to handle a kind of interesting superhero movie. Yeah. I mean, I think he's got a lot of other things on his mind, but you know, maybe he can incorporate some of that into the next Robert Pattinson Batman movie or something.
I like it. We got Sunshine and Devs moving on to the next round, but we move to the second half of the bracket. That's the movie section. And we begin with 2014's Ex Machina and 2018's Annihilation. Zach, what do you got?
I mean, look, it's hard to not pick an Ex Machina here, right? I think Ex Machina is a pretty strong contender heading into this whole bracket. And I know Annihilation's got its shooters out there, and Art's giving me a look like he might have some things to say. But I don't know. I really
I'm gonna let you finish.
I really appreciate Annihilation. It's a really like profound and rich story, thematically rich story with a lot of very like unforgettable sci-fi creations. Like it's a very disorienting and a disturbing movie, and I think that it gets to the kinds of existential fears that are present in a lot of Alex Garland stuff in a way that is maybe more like cinematic than a lot of his movies get. But ultimately, I just am really, really won over by the efficiency and efficacy or effectiveness, maybe I should say, of Ex Machina. That's my preferred movie here.
I feel you. We got one for Ex Machina. Ewan, you going for the aliens? Are you going for the AI?
To me, this is also like a really tough matchup. Whoever has to go up against Ex Machina, it's just what it is. Like that 2 years earlier, you had her, and then you have this, and it feels like
that's true.
They are really just on the precipice of what's like the questions that we're gonna ask us for the next 20, 30 years, and it's just something.
Prophetic movies.
Yeah, it's something really impressive that got like. I just really hope that Civil War isn't going to be that same thing in a couple of years. You know, he set a precedent. And Annihilation so far.
Civil War will not be the worst part of Civil War at the end of the day.
But yeah, Ex Machina is just truly iconic, and it took me like a second watch to appreciate what Annihilation has to offer, and I do think it has a ton to offer. And another downfall for me for Annihilation is that it I think if I'm correct, like in some places it didn't really get an international distribution, and that kind of
I remember that being an issue. Yeah.
Because it comes under the scrutiny of like direct being analyzed way more and micro picked apart, similar to what they do with what's her name, Ava in Ex Machina, and it's not really able to reassemble itself because it doesn't really have the chance to breathe a bit. And I think it's a movie that maybe that's why you like it so much. It like stays with you and it gets better and better as you go back to it, and it stays with you. But Ex Machina does that just even more, and so like that's why Zach, I also am with you with Ex Machina on this one.
I remember what you're talking about. It was Paramount had Annihilation, and this was around the same time that they told Scorsese, silence made us no money. We're never making another movie for you again. He went to streamers. Dude, they sold this to Netflix. So it was playing here in the States.
Right.
I covered this extensively. And it was in Netflix overseas. So you could literally pirate it here in the States if you wanted to. And Paramount legit said, it's too smart for audiences.
Yeah.
I think it's a movie that is worth
shame.
rewatches, like you said. I love the idea that it's based off of a book. Because a lot of people always ask him, you have such original ideas, and he goes, well, Ex Machina, it's not that original, it's just my take on AI. Annihilation is an adaptation, but he adapted it in the sense that he never reread the book. He just adapted the emotions that he remembered of it. And I think there's so much beauty in that movie. But it's actually going to be 3 for Ex Machina after my rewatches. Y'all boys are right. Ex Machina is on another level. People came out of Civil War trying to say that Ex Machina was a fluke. That's how I knew people were lying about Civil War.
Yeah.
It stands the test of time. There is so much good things in Ex Machina. I have some bangers for that. Like, I knew it was good when I had points for Ex Machina for the second round.
Right.
Ex Machina.
Right.
All right. 3-0 there. Rest in peace, Annihilation. I do love Annihilation. Please, people, watch
Yeah.
Annihilation. It's
Yeah.
I mean, there's
and it's
there's
streaming
so
on
much to
Netflix.
praise. There you go. There's
There
so
you
much
go.
to praise about Annihilation, and that's another one of the movies that I think really underlines what's been a recurring thing in Alex Garland stuff, which is centering women in his stories. It's the all women crew that goes into I forget the name of the shimmer
The
or
X-Bot,
whatever it is,
yeah.
and but yeah, I mean, it's funny because like you consider the genre that he's working in, whether it's this like hard sci-fi or this kind of like gritty action style, and these are particularly like male dominated genres, and yet over and over again he chooses to put a woman at the center of his stories, even when those stories are about men.
And we move on to the next one, Men versus Civil War. It's interesting that you mentioned that because they did go from going, this is what we need. Thank you for Annihilation. Annihilate this man's career. Men is the worst movie out there. I'm curious. I feel like this is going to be an easy match right here.
You're a
I
big
am
men
an-
defender. Make your case.
For the movie or for us? As men.
For us, it's been hard out here as a man for the
As
last
a man
bit.
has been difficult, but this year we had that I'm Just Ken performance at the Oscars, and I think we're really
True.
up. I think we're really
Yeah.
up. That
We're just men.
we're just there. You go. Oh damn! Look, you might actually have the cover right there. I'm going Civil War. I think this is no spoilers. Civil War all around. But my defense for Men is that if you already think that he was doing interesting stuff with Ex Machina from her perspective, Annihilation and the way he was able to showcase the women there. Even Civil War bringing it back. Let's not ignore depth. Why would Men be the fluke? That's all I'm asking first and foremost before we can even discuss the movie. Second, you like the other ones? He wrote Men before those.
Exactly, yeah.
I think there's a lot of beauty in there. I think if you were to take a lot of the stuff that he deals with in Ex Machina with creation, it's almost like this discussion of what a relationship is and how that relationship can also be kind of indicative of a relationship with God. If she's this woman who goes out to this garden on her Apple phone, who keeps being bothered by this mysterious figure out there, who only wants her to love him as if it's like the one commandment, I think there's so much to pull from, and I felt like a lot of people just dismissed the movie, and it was very weird. I heard some stuff about people thinking it was very transphobic. My man made a movie called Ex Machina where he said that a robot could be a human being. I think he's well beyond that, and I thought it was, I think there was a lot of disses for Men that kind of belittled it, but I think there's a lot in there that is worthy of it, worthy of praise, and it's Jesse Buckley. I think we're just belittling Jesse Buckley, who put a lot into that script, and it's an incredible performance.
Jesse Buckley's great. I am more mixed on Men than you are. While I do think there are some like things that are worthwhile to pull out of
It's
there
weird,
for
for
sure.
I'm not denying that.
Yeah, I will
But that
say
it's
though,
wrong?
like I think I can do an impromptu best scenes of Alex Garland's career list. And I'm putting that ending for Men up there. That is one of the best things he's ever done. With
You heard him
the
say
many
what inspired it?
protagonists.
He said it was Attack on Titan. He said his kid showed him Attack on Titan. He was like, "Yo, I'm doing that."
Yes.
Anime lover. Any thoughts, Ewan?
But yeah, I'm going Civil War 2. I don't know if, do you have any thoughts on Men?
He surprises us. He says,
I have lots of thoughts on Men. Well, I I caught this one in Gun. It was like great to actually see this. It feels like one of the rare experiences where I get to see one of Garland's films on the big screen and ahead of everyone else. So when I came out, I was like, "Oh, this is a great movie. Everyone's gonna be chatting about this." And I was like, "Hold up!" And then the reaction was kind of surprising to me.
"Crazy, yeah."
Maybe I was a bit flabbergasted because I got to see Jesse Buckley and Rory Kinnear in like person, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Now I like the movie more. But I feel like similar to what you guys talked about when you talked about Civil War, that it says more about the people, what they actually read into it about themselves.
Right.
It feels the same way about Men, the way that you read into it, and then also in a way that it's like supposed to be kind of not challenging is the wrong word, but
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, make you think about stuff, and it certainly makes you think about stuff, and it makes you uncomfortable. And I feel like if a movie is just provoking you for no reason, then that's just annoying. But that's not what Men is doing, and I feel like it was kind of pulled apart for the wrong reasons, and you could have done a really productive pulling apart, in that sense. But it's Civil War.
It's
Civil War across the board.
Boom. We move on to the second round with all of our picks here, and we go back to the writer TV bracket where we have a written one and a TV bracket, or a TV selection for the miniseries Devs and Sunshine. Ewan, I go back to you.
This is actually another tough matchup that I have to make my mind up, because in my rankings they are right next to each other, and I could kind of change them up, but I don't want to go first.
You default you get default to Zach.
Yes, I will. I'll use my one time. I use my one time.
All right, so Sunshine versus Devs. Interesting. I mean, look, there's a lot more of Devs. It's longer. I think I'm gonna go.
There was also that solar eclipse. There was no sunshine for a bit, and there's always Devs around. So
right. I mean, I think I'm going to go with Sunshine here. And it's not because I don't think Devs is great, because I do. I think that Sunshine ultimately is like a nice, concise statement, whereas there's so much packed into Devs that it's almost hard to wrap your whole head around Devs. Like if you ask me to summarize Devs for you right now, I'd be talking for the next 5 minutes.
That's awesome.
It's great, and that's something that's great about it. But yeah, I don't know. I think because maybe it's just that I can articulate what I like about Sunshine a little bit more. But that being said, like Devs is so riveting in its depiction of sort of like the perversion of tech culture and the way we kind of worship certain figures in the tech realm and look to it as this savior of life's faults when it's something that enables a lot of issues too. It was, it's maybe the best looking thing that Garland has ever directed. So many of the sets and visuals are really amazing in Devs, but narrowly I'm going to go with Sunshine here.
I'm going to make it difficult for you, and I am going Devs.
Oh my God.
That's what you get for defaulting.
It's totally my bad, actually. I thought this was going to happen. Look, one of them is Cillian Murphy, the other one is Nick Offerman. Where do I go? I don't know. This doesn't help at all. I like a lot about Devs, the way that it incorporates a lot of different themes. Like you said, Zach, it might be too much at points where you can kind of pick and choose. Okay, this is what we're gonna be focusing on for a bit, but at the center of it all, it's like that obsession with power and control all through time, and I appreciate that. But like Zed, it's more concise in Sunshine, and I gotta say, the beginning stages of Deaths takes a long time to actually get me to care about anything that is happening. And by the time it gets to the stuff, it gets really muddled as well. So on the thriller side, I don't think it's the best way that it's could have been executed. Also think Sunshine doesn't really come out cleanly with like messy endings and all of that stuff in between. But how ruthless it treats some of its characters is actually more thrilling to me. So I'm gonna go with Sunshine. But don't ask me again in like 2 minutes. I might change my mind. Okay.
Art, why are you upset?
I could drag out for 120 seconds.
Yeah, please do. Let's hear it.
No, I mean, look, I understand the love for Sunshine because I remember recommending Sunshine to everybody back in the day. I was like, yo, y'all gotta check out this movie. The way that it utilizes this cast, I agree with you. And there is like a coolant scene. I was like, whoa, you gonna do that actor like that? There's a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, there is limbs being ripped apart in some scenes in there as well. I also do think when talking about prophetic movies, you know, zombies, Civil War, all these different things, sun flares. There's not that many sun flare movies out there, and it is a thing. And I think the way that he discusses it in this idea of getting enamored by the sun is interesting. But I think Devs, be it because we're in modern times, I think speaks on so many different things on predestination versus you being able to make your own free will, and this idea of like, where do they almost intertwine? And I feel like Alex Garland makes spiritual movies without the spirituality of them. Like he takes away all this religious stuff that people may think is like magical realism, and he's able to directly
science is the religion.
Bruh, honestly, it's like he's not even denying your religious experience. He's just explaining it to you with facts. And Devs is just a whole mini series of that. I think that's 120 seconds.
It's really compelling show. I'm sorry to see it lose here.
Yeah,
Devs moves on.
But not that sorry.
To the next bracket. But we have the one that's going to go up Sunshine for the finale. And it's either Ex Machina and Civil War. I think it's going to be more peaceful than we think.
Yeah, I don't think we have to go into battle over this one.
Anyone going for Civil War? Or anyone have any final things to say about Civil War? The reason why we're doing this bracket.
The two of us have talked about Civil War a lot on this channel. Let's hear some of your thoughts on it.
I was on the edge of my seat for the entire movie. It made me jump a couple of times when I heard the gunshots. There's like, in Switzerland, we all have to do obligatory military service. And
really?
Yeah, we are like one of the countries that has per capita, I think one of the most, like, we are really close to the States with the amount of guns per people that we have. And
not quite there yet.
We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. Hey, we are moving closer with healthcare as well, and it's great. No, but it's just there's also in the town that I live in, there's like a military base where they do a lot of the training, and there's like a shooting range. So I hear gunshots quite often, just like in the background somewhere, and you don't think twice about it. And Civil War is really contextualizing that for me. Obviously, I'm not based in the States, and it's not as much of an issue here. We don't have that many issues with gun, but it still is an issue mainly with something like. I don't think you're supposed to say the S word, I guess, on YouTube. Otherwise, you're gonna get monetized. Yeah. But like that more than anything else, and. This just brought all of that to the center of what it would mean if a country is fighting with itself, and there's no lines to be drawn anywhere. And it's all about the information that is presented to you and that you're working off. And when that information is not being, or like, who gives you the information? Who are you listening to? And what are you doing with it? That's all that, like, all of the conflicts are going to be based around in like the foreseeable future. And that to me is so incredibly terrifying that this movie just kind of encapsulates that. Like, two snipers just shooting at whatever because of what? They lack information. And that just like to me was like the best scene of the film. I thought that was like incredibly effective in like what it was telling without just like, you know, doing a bunch of narration. It's like, oh, this is, but it's still there's shooting, there's action in there, and matching
world
that.
building.
Yes, and it's like it's not a world that you want to see built so close to something that's real and could be real. And so yeah, I thought Civil War really, for lack of a better term, pulls a punch or like packs a fight up against Ex Machina. But I feel like it still kind of falls short because it's Ex Machina. Like, what?
It's Ex Machina, yeah. But it shows you still got it.
Definitely,
yeah.
All right. That means Ex Machina moves to the finals against Sunshine. Are y'all voting for Sunshine over Ex Machina?
Now, if it were Dev.
No, I mean, that's the thing. I kind of felt like this is the front runner for a reason. Ex Machina to me still stands out as the best thing that Alex Garland has made, and it's not to say that as an insult to the things he's made since then, because I do consistently find him compelling. But just the way that Ex Machina both speaks to our interest in and paranoia about the future of AI development. And, you know, that's something that we're obviously still feeling resonant in today's culture. But, you know, it's just such an effective kind of like small thriller. You know, there's only a couple characters. It's almost like a bottle movie that you're all just the whole thing taking place at this like reclusive mansion. But it ends up being this showcase for these incredible performances. It still might be like the most dynamic that Oscar Isaac has been on screen, and that whole dance sequence that he has with Sonoya is, I think, still the most iconic thing that Alex Garland has put into a movie. It is entertaining, thought-provoking, beautifully rendered, and leaves you on the edge of your seat in a way that I think all his stuff, you know, you feel elements of that, but this is like the right formula. It's the best stuff from what I think of when I think of an Alex Garland type of movie. It's this.
Ewan?
Yeah, I can just subscribe to whatever Zach just said. He put it very nicely. It's a ray of sunshine that you need in filmmaking. You know, have a splash of that in there, and it's great to see. Like if I look at my ranked list, there's a clean line of everything he's directed, and then everything he's written is kind of below. Although he has written and directed it, I feel like he puts a lot of interesting aspects into. I'd say more into his world building than its characters. But Ex Machina is kind of the outlier where I find the world, because it is so contained and simple, it takes like the backstep to the front and center of these these kind of exploration of three characters or four characters locked in a mansion, and it's thrilling from beginning to end.
I agree. I think the rewatch really made me see the movie in different ways, which is when you know you have a masterpiece on your hands, when you're revisiting it and understanding different elements of it. And a big part was you get the obvious, you know, scientific, they're there to see if she's AI and will she become human. Is this whole thing a test within a test type thing? And as it makes you like answer all those questions, it's more than just like a creator question. It's also the creation itself, wondering where certain things come from. And I think there's a through line in Annihilation and the, you know, what you just said, which I really appreciate on Civil War, and how you take information and how you process that, how people saw men. All of these movies result in our memory and interpretation of things. He makes these Rorschach type films where what the characters are doing and how you interpret it is either going to be a woman who's being captured and kept locked up, or two men who may have been the victims of somebody trying to escape. But in that film, there are several moments where he discusses things in interviews about where certain ideas came from. And I find it so fascinating because you're wondering who's tricking who in the film, who's testing who. And there's this bit that he said in an interview, Alex Garland, where he said that it was years later that he realized that the reason why Isaac's character throws a glass was because he needed something that showcased his character being mean to the other robots. But he said, why did I choose that? And why did it take so many years later to realize where in my subconscious that came from? And that sent like goosebumps down my spine about what cerebral level this man was working on. And it's like therapeutic at that point. Again, we're talking about all these movies and the perspectives you bring into them. And I think that that's why he's one of the best filmmakers, because he's meeting you halfway when he makes a film. So Ex Machina, without a doubt, not just his best movie. I think this was up there in the charts for A24. I think this is up there in the charts, like you were mentioning with her, because it's one of the best films, I think, in the past 20 years.
You said you had a ranking for Garland. What's your like top 5 for Alex Garland?
It actually is just his directorial features.
And you don't have the any of the written features on there?
Well, Sunshine is number 6 for me. So it's like Ex Machina, Civil War. I kind of
Dredd.
bumped just before we started Men in front of Annihilation, and I don't know if I'm okay with that. And then Devs. I do have Devs above Sunshine, which goes against what I did to you. All right. I'm sorry.
You liar.
How dare you?
I switched up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these things ebb and
It's been
flow,
another
and
120 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, that ending shot in Ex Machina, I think, is really what kind of encapsulates the whole film, where we kind of see her through the reflections of glass, and you're still kind of wondering who you are seeing,
Right.
like, and what her intentions are from beginning to end. Is she just mimicking the men who are men as humans that are manipulating her to their own desire? Is she making like something of her own mind up, or is she just the culmination of everything that man has built? And that to me is like super intriguing, and it's why it's so great. It's why it's one of the best.
There's a specific shot at the end where also, like you were saying, when she's finally by herself and knows she isn't being viewed, what is she doing when she's now no longer the test subject, no longer being observed? Well, Zach, what do you got? What's your order?
I got in my top 5, I got Civil War at 5. I got 28 Days Later at 4. I got Sunshine at 3. Annihilation at 2. And I got Ex Machina at 1. I feel like Ex Machina is going to be the pretty consensus number 1 pick, but it's in that middle section where I think they're going to have some variety. I don't know how similar yours is. Are you closer to Ewan or are you closer to me?
Starting from the top, I have Ex Machina and Devs just neck and neck. Then Annihilation, then Civil War, and then Men.
Nice.
And if I'm a defender of Men, that just shows you how much I think of those top 4.
Yeah. Shout out to Matthew, who's in the live stream. Says that their top 5 is Ex Machina, Civil War, Devs, Annihilation, Dredd, and then Men. I saw earlier Devesh, who's also in the live stream with us, but Sunshine ahead of Ex Machina. I don't know if Sunshine is number 1 Garland, but a reminder that you can watch along live with us by joining up on the Intercut membership page on YouTube, or by heading over to patreon.com/intercutpod and signing up to get some early and behind the scenes access to what we do here on Intercut. Circulate it back to Devesh's pick of Sunshine. What did you think about Sunshine, Art? I don't know if we've heard from you too much about the movie, but did you revisit that one for the podcast as well?
Oh yeah, I watched that one because that was like one of the first movies I gave Alina in our high school days. I'm like, you need to watch this. It smacks. So look, high schooler has no problem at getting, a ray of light on it. Let's shine some specialness to it. Shout it out in that sense. And I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I think it still holds up in its brutality. I think what it's discussing is fascinating to me. I think the ending is tense. It is disgusting what they do.
And the ending
the score is great. Yeah,
is beautiful. It is like a very kind of like strange movie too, and I often find myself watching it feeling like, did I miss some information? But realizing not really. Like it's just kind of got this overwhelming sense to it. It throws you right into the middle of the mission. It doesn't sit you down to like very neatly explain what everybody's doing and what their motivations are, and the way that they kind of get thrown into some chaos. It throws you into chaos, both in terms of the story and in terms of how it depicts it. I think one of the things that's really cool, but also a little bit like maybe distancing about it, is the way that Danny Boyle will do all these shots that are obscured by like the solar flare stuff, or have this kind of like out of focus.
When they're coming in, it's almost like it's out of focus, but like there's heat in there.
Yeah, but I think it does make it really effective at communicating the like, you know, frightening, immense, and epic nature of space.
I will say there's too many jumps in the rewatch out of space that I'm just like, I don't know about that. One is crazy. This man's just like Buzz Lightyear out there at some point.
Yeah, they're really just like running around, just enjoying themselves on the in the spacesuits.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But Ex Machina, our Garland winner. We're curious to know, you Intercuties, you listeners, let us know down below what your rankings would be, what your favorite ones are, your favorite Alex Garland scenes as well, because I know he's retiring, as they say, but the next one that he has coming up, it's in pre-production, is Warfare, which has, let me pull up his name, the guy who helped him,
Charles Melton. Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh no, shout out Charles Melton for sure. I'll shoot you with the cast right now. Ray Mendoza helped him orchestrate the action scenes in Civil War. So now Ray Mendoza is telling his story about like his platoon, and Garland is helping him make sure, hey, I got you artistically. I'll help you direct this. I mean, the man
sounds very promising.
He's awesome. So, but you were saying the cast is also really stacked.
Yeah. Do you have it in front of you? All I remember was Charles Melton.
Will Poulter, Joseph Quinn, Noah Centineo. Who else is on here?
Michael Gandolfini.
Cosmo Jarvis, who just was in Shogun.
Crazy. So, I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm always looking forward to the next Alex Garland. I don't care if it's a script. I don't care if it's a book. I don't care if it's a play. I will be there.
The guy who's playing Ray Mendoza, who's the director of the movie, is Tefera Wunatai, who I recognize at least from Reservation Dogs.
Yep. So I think it'll be good. I'm really excited for that. But any other final thoughts to wrap up our Alex Garland bracket, boys?
Well, one thing that I didn't get to ask that I think I normally do when we do these episodes is like, what is an Alex Garland movie to you? Like, did Civil War meet your expectations for what you think of when you think of Alex Garland? Is it more like Ex Machina, like I was saying? Like, is there a unifying theme? Is there a thing you think he does better than any other filmmaker out there? Like, what is it about Alex Garland that makes him stand out to the two of you?
I'll let you go, you in first.
I think it is just kind of getting stuff right. As dumb as that sounds, but getting something that's relevant and getting to the core of it and exploring the uncomfortable nature of something without packaging into something that's neatly consumed. Even the stuff that he just writes in Sunshine is so messy, and I think that's what's making him stand out. Even into something like Civil War, which feels weird to say, but is a bit more commercial. It still has that, and I feel like not a lot of other filmmakers do have that, and he has that visual intensity that he can create, but it's hard to put a finger on it. What exactly it is.
He does have that really uncanny ability that you mentioned to make whatever outlandish sci-fi idea he has feel grounded in our reality. Like, none of the films that he's made, even one that's as like sci-fi soaked as something like Annihilation with a whole, like alternate dimension kind of thing going on, it all feels like it's birthed from either ideas that we have or fears that we have in a way that really makes them feel like if it's not stuff that necessarily could happen to us tomorrow, it's stuff that we feel like could happen to us tomorrow. And that's something that I think helps his films resonate in a landscape where a lot of sci-fi does feel very disconnected from our present reality.
I agree. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Art, or you think we got it?
No, that's good. I had mentioned mine earlier that I think he's able to make what feels like religious moments of you questioning
Totally.
your creator and Ex Machina. You know, extraterrestrials coming in, how would they be? They would be this organism that goes through you. Same thing with Civil War. Like you're saying, the fact that it feels like an alternate reality of what could possibly happen makes it so scary, but that he always leaves it open for your thoughts. There was a line that he had said for Ex Machina, which I think encompasses all his movies. People thought what they brought into the movie. And that's what he's always doing. So,
Definitely.
Alex Garland, one of my personal favorites. He's up there with Denny. As far as current filmmakers right now, if they make a movie, I will go down to a film festival and wait in line for it. They're the best. So I'm glad that South by had the double feature for us in watching Denny's new movie in IMAX and then also this one here. But that is it for this show. You can find more from me over at LME Movies on all social media, from Twitter, YouTube, Letterboxd. Let's see, Ewan, where can people find more from you?
You can find me weekly on the Quiet on Set podcast. We actually just have an episode out for the Fall Guy, and we're talking about challenges next week. So always up to that. And then I'm off to Cannes, to the film festival.
Clean.
Heading there. Yeah.
Yo, let me see that bill.
Yeah.
It's that. There you go.
Ooh, what's on the bill, dude? Oh,
Yeah, it's
The
pretty. I got
double
a couple
logo.
of them.
that's nice.
My white one, unfortunately, has like a sweat stain that I can't get out. It's prettier than this one even.
I feel you. That's
But it's
clean.
like, you know, the intense movies when you're 3 hours into like a Martin Scorsese film, your head starts sweating and you didn't take off your cap. You made a mistake there, but yeah.
Hey, but you sat at a Martin Scorsese movie at its premiere at Cannes. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Who can
that-
complain
you got the
about that?
story
Barely
attached with
snuck
it, too.
in. Barely snuck in. I almost didn't
we'll-
get. Yeah, I almost made my co-host Lachlan and Cole not get a seat because I was moving lines, and then they didn't advance our line, and we were the last 3 people to get in.
There you go.
Yeah. It's like ultimately, I look like the good guy because we got in, but I was almost the reason why we didn't get in. But yeah.
Yeah. And we'll have you back on the podcast soon for more of your adventures and anecdotes from Cannes and reviews out of this year's festival. So we have that to look forward to at the end of May. But yeah, thanks for hopping on this podcast with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it.
course.
Zach, wrap it up. Where can they find more from you?
You can find more from me at Zshevich across social media, or you can find more from me at Multiplex Show wherever you find videos. All right, we got one last quick question in here from Devesh. Maybe we can hit it before we wrap up. How long before he directs another do you think, if ever? We were alluding to the fact that he's talking about taking a step away from directing movies, although he's involved in warfare, like you say. Are you taking that threat seriously? You think he's ever gonna pick up a camera again, or is he just gonna be a penman for the rest of his career?
No, he'll come back to it because he's done it already 4 times, 5 if you count Devs, whether it be in film, whether it be in TV, whatever it is. I know it'll come back because I'm a person who also doesn't believe that Tarantino's leaving. So that's just my stance on all directors. You don't ever retire.
Creatives create, right? And I
There you
think
go.
he has reached such a level with Civil War in terms of his
Yeah.
ability to realize big scale movies that I would be very surprised if we never
What is it?
get something from behind
28
the camera
years,
again.
right? He
Yeah.
said he wrote that, so he just handed that to Alex Boyle. He's going to be kind of there with him, making sure that gets out there. But we're doing over under 2030. I say he goes in production by 2029.
Ooh, okay, okay.
something.
I'll take that bet. I'll take that action.
I'll
Sounds
see y'all
good to me
then.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, close it out. Give a shout out to the Intercuties. Let them know about the patron hangout.
Yeah, thanks to all the Intercuties for your continued support over on patreon.com/intercutpod or here on YouTube by joining the channel as a member, clicking that join button and giving us as little as $3 per month to get access to all sorts of behind the scenes content. We'll be hopping on a monthly hangout soon with y'all, but in order to get access to lots of stuff behind the scenes, including this video early, make sure to head over to one of those places and support this podcast. Let us know you like what we're doing. You can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Overcast, whatever podcatcher you'd like. You can also subscribe to us here on YouTube at youtube.com/intercutpod, where you can watch our perplexed faces as we face different types of Alex Garland dystopia.
See devs
on
lose.
a weekly basis. Intercut streams weekend must watch on Mondays, and you can leave us a comment, like this video and others. Consider heading over to iTunes to give us the much requested 5-star review. It does a lot to help grow our show. And shout out to our listeners in Canada for putting us on the film review charts out there. Like our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter pages, support our Patreon, and like I just mentioned. You can find all of those at Intercut Pod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from me, from Ewan, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, Art, give me a quote. I wasn't prepared for this moment.
We're only shooting at them because they're shooting at us. Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Well, let me give you a third one.
Yeah, wait.
Men.